Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Girlfriends Without Benefits podcast. We are excited to have another episode with guests. This time it's plural, after dark. So we have with us our kind of plus one spouses, partners. We'll probably talk about which happy word we so choose to use and why. But guys, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I guess let's dive in. Okay, let's start with you, Eric. How many episodes of Girlfriends Without Benefits have you listened to?
Entire episodes, probably 3.
Okay. Anthony,
I'm always here for about 90% of them.
you get the live version.
Yeah.
Because we usually record so early, he's on the couch, usually getting ready for his tattoos and drawing and designing. So he listens to all of them.
Oh, bless you, Eric.
Seriously. And you still were okay to be on today.
I am. I'm a little nervous, but I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, same question.
Yeah, I'm not nervous because I actually haven't listened to any.
So not true.
I have listened to excerpts. I've not listened to a full.
Yes, you did. You listened to the one religiously spiritual one. We listened to the whole thing.
Oh, I guess that was
Yeah.
part of a series, and I listened to yours. Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
extra. So one, very exciting. I feel like I live it though every day, so I don't need to play it back.
I have a feeling we're going to get to that in a minute too.
Yeah, I was going to say there's more words on that.
There's a lot to unpack. And Tom, same
Wow.
question.
Golly, I believe I've listened to one as just thinking back, I believe it was one of the earlier ones. However, as with Anthony, I feel like I kind of live the reality. So I get the unadulterated, non-edited, just raw experience of it.
Choice words.
Given the subject matter that we had in the last podcast episode, that just like has a whole nother layer to it. I don't think they know of what they speak. They don't know.
I have no idea. That probably will be an episode that all three of them collectively want to listen to.
Listen, I've given warnings. I've told Anthony what episodes he's been a part of that we've talked about him in, and he's chosen not to listen to them, and that is his own regard.
Yeah.
I feel like
That
Eric and
way.
Tom have relatively gotten off unscathed because we haven't had a lot of conversation about them. And mainly because Eric participates in 99% of them. But Anthony's the one who he's made a special guest star, so some of the episodes.
You're a topic of conversation.
Wow.
You're a local celebrity.
So I want to know what Anthony and Tom mean by they feel like they live it raw and unadulterated. Unadulterated. What does
Don't put
that
those
mean?
words in my mouth, Jen.
What does that mean, Anthony?
I'm gonna actually defer to Tom on that since he says I don't know what that description was. Tom.
Well, if you have a podcast that delves deeply into spiritualism and it goes into very personal aspects of
Sexual positions
personal
and
development, I mean, golly, the
He
first thing
refused.
that Cass did when she got home from her recent trip to Arizona was break out all the spiritual stuff that she happened to acquire. And I had a almost like a impromptu show and tell that went through item by item, which, you know, of course, the podcast listeners probably don't get to experience this, but I get to eat, breathe, drink, and likewise live a lot of this subject matter on a daily basis. So in that respect, I do feel as though I get a front row seat for how Girlfriends Without Benefits sort of impacts the world, the greater world around you all.
Oh, that was a lovely answer, Tom.
and Anthony's just looking at you going, ditto.
That actually, I
Say that's not your experience, Anthony, because I didn't just get home from a trip to Arizona and do a show and tell for you. So
no, there is no visual optics on that. I was so impressed with just how eloquent Tom was just then, because the way that he described it really didn't match the description, but I think we all agreed that it was fine. So what I meant from that is I feel like I kind of was part of the podcast from the inception when you all started first talking about it, and then to kind of get that front row seat in terms of the creation of it, and then for you all to decide what topics that you're going to be talking about. And then of course, in the way that it relates to me and all of my quirks that I guess have been talked or not talked about, like they're mine. So I already know. So I don't really feel an urge to like go and listen back to see what everyone thinks about it.
Be called out.
Yeah, called out.
Called up, Kaylin. It's not called out, it's called up.
Amen. Preach it.
Or led.
I mean, it's just content on steroids, which I'm very excited about Florida personally, because I'm like, what other content are we going to find during that trip? Like,
Yeah, you were alluding to, Anthony, when we were at Florida all together, and you were part of the conversations, and so was Tom. Yeah, you're right. That's true. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, when everyone was just gathered around the table for hours on end, and I'm like, can we break for dinner? Can I get a snack time? Like, is there any opportunity for recreation? Because for those who maybe don't know, when you all just get going, it's like a wheelhouse, and then all of a sudden it's a force to be reckoned with. And so then it's like, hey, can I get some time back?
Let me set the record straight. There were no shortage of snacks in Jacksonville. There was an abundance of all things snacks. So
and wine.
Plenty of that too. And yeah, no shortage of ideas. And yeah, so yes, the creative juices were definitely flowing during our recent trip back in what was that, February?
Not recent. That was like
January.
It was like a year ago.
A year ago.
That was 9 months ago.
Time's relative, 9 months might not feel like a long time to some. It might feel like a life age to others, but
Especially if you're pregnant.
yeah, so that's sort of how it is.
Yeah. Okay. So all of you guys, in one way or another, have had a front row seat. Because Eric, although you were in Florida, you probably hear us talking more together than Tom or Anthony.
Yeah, I'm usually right on the other side of the camera most
Yeah.
mornings. Yeah.
Yeah.
In case you guys are curious, on our YouTube channel, you can now picture Eric on the other side of the camera.
Mhm.
Right.
What other questions did we have for them? I know there were some ones that were bouncing around between the three of us.
Yes. I think I'd love to know. Well, I want to ask Eric first. What is it like to be married to, or not married, to be the partner of Jade, said member of Girlfriend Without Benefits?
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
loaded question.
Yeah.
I know.
Very loaded.
How long we got?
Jade is the type of woman that wakes up and does dishes before I'm even cognizant of what the hell's going on.
That's true.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and Jade also, when she wants to cuddle with you, she wants to cuddle, and when she doesn't want you to touch her, she'll let you know, and it's pretty much on her terms.
Jade sounds a lot like a cat.
She's
I
very
have been
cat-like.
compared to that actually many times.
Mhm.
Yeah.
She's like your limp noodle.
When I go limp noodle, like when I hit that wall and I can't deal with anything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. At
Yeah.
night.
What about, it's like, yeah, she's done at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, I mean, she's great. I love Jade so much. She's
How
just
often does she look at your chart? Like, just imagine that must be like a daily occurrence of like, oh, let me get all.
oh yeah, always check and see what's going on in our charts and just in the planets at large. And
Is that hard for her to know that she knows what's going on with you?
before you know.
No,
Exactly.
it's very helpful. It's yeah, she uses that as a North Star
Mhm.
for everything, for new people, for the people in the family, just to, yeah, it's definitely a guiding light to what's going on with everyone.
I
So
do have a question. How
Mhm.
many dates did you go on before she asked you your birth time, place, and date?
we've been together for 8.5 years. So she didn't get into astrology until when?
Yeah, until after we'd been together for some time.
Yeah, so hundreds of dates, because we would go on a date every night for a few years there, and there was
We weren't
lots
really
of-
dating. We never dated. That's a whole nother story. Yeah, we didn't really date.
lots of
That
martinis.
sounds like a story.
Mhm. No, he was just supposed to be a friend with benefits. That's all. That is all that was supposed to be.
Yeah, we're still kind of riding that wave.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
podcast for a different time.
Uh-huh.
That was last podcast.
I mean, pretty close.
I know. Yeah. Again, refer to last podcast. So yeah, he has always supported astrology. He never went through a phase. I think a lot of guys would, where they're like, oh my God, please stop talking about that. Like, that is not like, that doesn't resonate. He's always been like, tell me more. And he's quite the astrologer himself. He'll be with clients and he'll chart their,
Yeah, I'll pull up
Yeah.
their birth chart all the time. I'm like,
Yeah.
you should definitely do XYZ, or whatever.
he's learned it through osmosis. It's pretty
Mhm.
impressive. So yeah, he's into it. He's there for it.
Yeah.
Tom, what about you? What's it like being married to a shaman?
Every day is an unpredictable adventure that never ceases to amaze, astound, confuse, stress out. It is when I say an adventure, and there are high points and low points at any adventure, and that is life married to a shaman, because of the fact that it's not always just peachy. Life isn't always fantastic. There are some very frustrating moments, but at the same time, the absolute joy and just the absolute just happiness that is derived from that everyday unpredictability is so worth it. And it's so compelling to continue forward with the adventure. And similar to what Eric mentioned about, well, is it, can you be apprehensive about astrology? Can you be apprehensive about being involved with a shaman? And to a certain extent, I'd say no. It's just all part of the greater collection of what makes Cass her, and it is a very gratifying experience. And there's always a different way of looking at things. That's a very unconventional approach to unpacking a problem. And whether it is looking into some sort of mystical activity that can allow for a greater ease of a particular challenge, or
Also known as soul retrieval.
or if it's saying, listen, we're going to try this technique to try to remedy this particular hardship. Like
Also known as plant medicine.
right now, we do have a 10-month-old that is teething, and I gotta say, we will probably be implementing some shamanic activities to get through this upcoming weekend.
I don't know why you wouldn't. When you're married to the magic medicina, you listen.
And that's life, is the ability to pivot and the ability to kind of adapt to an ever-evolving, ever-changing world around you. And I think the beauty of being involved with a shaman is they do bring this different belief system that allows you to think outside the box. And as I mentioned, it is very unique and it's truly an adventure.
Is there any synchronicities that have happened that have really freaked you out?
All of them.
Whether it is the use of like Copo Baeba for the teething process, that's really unique.
Tom, I'm going to insert here for a second. Tom gets freaked out when things work and when things happen, like period. So like, snake oil, as he used to call it with the Copa Baeba.
Nonchalant Eeyore. He
Correct.
would be freaked out when things work out.
It's like, wait, he's like, you put it on, and like we gave her medicine one time and she like was still freaking out. So I put on the oil and she immediately stopped crying, and he was like,
wow,
what just happened? Like he like still like blows and shocks, like it blows his mind and like shocks him.
But
He blows and shocks. Sure.
something that is,
Again, refer to last podcast. I'm gonna keep.
but unlike something where you have physical stimuli, which is oil derived from a plant that's placed directly on the gums, you also have more spiritual and mystical activities, such as when Cass journeyed to Costa Rica and performed her plant medicine ritual. And that exact same time was when our oldest, Diana, started talking, because she had previously been dealing with a speech delay, and she had more or less embraced her own language of kind of a combination of grunts and murmurs, and then just almost as if flipping a light switch, she went from nonverbal to
Very verbal.
In a matter of 24 hours time, almost overnight, it would seem. So that there are certain synchronicities that are unexplainable in other respects, but just tend to be just the way it is. And it's hard to deny, or impossible to deny, the impact that these shamanic techniques have had in our everyday lives. And that's something that we'll continue to explore as life moves forward.
So I'm going to take the questioning now and flip to Anthony. I would say, kind of out of the three of us, Kaylin just shook her head no. So
No comment.
no, but kind of out of the three of us, I think Kaylin has had the quickest process, mainly because Jade and I don't give her any opportunity to say no. And she's also said yes to herself, dozens and dozens of times, and I think has been waiting for all of kind of her stuff to start coming through. So kind of like, what is your take on Kaylin's transformation and change and shift over the past like 2.5 years?
It has been fun to watch. I would be lying if I said that I wasn't a little surprised or even shocked. I think at the beginning, when Kaylin first started working for you, Cass, and she would come home and say, oh, I learned about this, or have you heard about that? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but that sounds like witchcraft. And so, and I know Kaylin has talked about this in previous episodes, but just coming from very traditional households with very traditional belief systems, that always felt a little taboo. And so for me, I was a little concerned at the beginning, because I was like, what kind of dark magic are you getting into,
Yeah, Anthony did not grow up in a home like mine, where like my mother openly talked about like spirits and things like that. That was like manifesting was like a naughty word in his house.
And even just, with birth charts and tarot cards and things like that, even for me, just having my first experience in January with Jade, and Jade was like, you can just lean in as much as you want. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. But it's been really fun to watch. I think what I've realized in our marriage now is just that the person that you marry or even meet, and for me, Kaylin was 14 years old when that happened. That's a whole other podcast episode probably, but we are sweethearts. And the person that she was when she was 14 is not the person that she is today as a 30-year-old. And so part of that challenge is getting reintroduced to that new person and that belief system and the interests and everything that comes along with it. So even as we're sitting at her desk, it's like she has cards pulled, right? There's like all these things. And I'm like, okay, this is
pendulums, tarot cards.
Yes, and even our son talks about it, right? But I love it. And I think it's been pretty fun to see the transformation, and so much so that I can kind of make fun of it a little bit now. Like I send her memes, and one was like, I need someone with bangs and to tell me what planet is making me so sad, right? Or I love self-deprecating humor, so I sent her another meme, and it was like, my birthstone is rock bottom. It's things like that. It's so I think we're finding the joy and the fun in sort of
bottom. I like that one. I'm a little bit sad I didn't get that one though. Anthony normally sends them around in a circle.
That's true.
Kaylin, did you get this? She's like, yeah, 922. I'm like, oh, 921. He sent it to me first.
Oh my gosh. Yikes. Read receipts.
We have fun.
It's fine.
Yeah, no, but it's been cool. And so I'm certainly enjoying the process. And I think, it's just been really cool to see that. And I'm not as scared of it anymore, which is good. That's like, okay, I know that it's good stuff. So
to even on top of that, he sent me a screenshot of a bank statement, and it had a bunch of repeating numbers, and he was like, this has to mean something. Like, sure does.
Yeah,
Sure does.
I don't know what it means, but there's something.
Let's just say there are a lot of 8s and 9s, Cass.
Woohoo!
So I guess I'll take it. I don't know.
Good answers.
Is there any questions for us that you want addressed on our podcast? Flipping the script a little now that we put you all guys on the spot.
I want to know, at what point did this become group therapy?
I mean, since day one.
It's always been.
That is an excellent question.
I feel like the guys got suckered into this, and it was like, hey, tell us how you feel. And now, Cass, you have Tom on record saying all these things that you bring to the marriage. I'm like, man, if y'all ever go to divorce court, it's like, play it back, run the tape.
Season 1, episode 37.
Exactly.
No, it's to death. So,
I love it.
You don't need to worry about the courts in that scenario.
So you just kill me, or
that, or you,
So
or
who
you
dies
off me,
first?
one way or another.
That situation.
Yeah, that works.
No, but I mean, I think all of our episodes have an element of group therapy in them. And like for me, it's the conversations that like people have and that are quote taboo and weird to have with other people, that like every time we hit record, we're like, this is going to be weird. Like, go. Like
No, it's the premise of our podcast. We're inviting you to these private conversations. I remember the first time when I was listening to a podcast, when I realized that other people could listen to it too. I'm like, oh, damn, like we really are.
Was it the lip color one?
Yes.
But
It was the boob one.
At its
Yeah.
very nature, though, is everyone brings their own degree of weirdness to this civilization of ours, and it's how we express ourselves and go about our daily lives, and how we, communicate that to others, that we are participating in the greater world around us.
Yes, but I think up until this point, it's been rather taboo to talk about some of the things that we talk about, right, Eric? I mean, you listen to every episode, so
Yeah.
you can say that these conversations aren't ones that you have generally at, a pizza store, unless you're with the three of us.
Yeah, they're at least somewhat amusing.
To say the least.
So I have a question, I guess, circling back to Cass's point about, if there's anything that we wonder. And I guess for me, I'm a person who really loves information, like a lot, because I feel like knowledge actually is power. I feel like the more that you know, it informs our lives and the decisions that we make, but also ignorance is bliss. sometimes the less we know is better, and then we don't have to worry about it, and we'll just sweep it under the rug.
That
Or
podcast isn't, yeah, this podcast isn't for you if you're like, the less we know is better.
Or so I like to think for myself. But do you guys ever get to a point where you're like, I feel like I know too much? And because of, if you have such an insight to things that we can't always see with the naked eye, does it ever feel overwhelming?
Yeah,
Yeah, all the time.
all the time.
I mean, like hourly.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a lot of work to be so vulnerable.
The three of us are currently processing something that just happened that and we're all kind of, I feel like, at different points in our like journey of processing. Cass, of course, because of her background, is like, F you, I'm done. Bye.
Yeah, I sent them a resignation letter this morning, Anthony, in case you want to catch up. But so it's interesting because like all of us have had background in trauma. All of us have different trauma responses, different tics, different personalities that we're bringing to the table. And I was telling Tom this yesterday is like, that's not comfortable for people at all. Like, and it's not comfortable for us even more so because like there are times when like Jade will say something and then I get offended and then I say something and then it offends Kaylin who offends Jade, who like, it like spirals. And it's like, okay, like we have to pause and we have to like kind of take a breath in a moment to like reassess of like where this is coming from and how this is coming from and what's like, what are the different pieces and parts we're bringing to the table. And like, it can be overwhelming for people on the outside, but it's also, I think, even more overwhelming for us because we're going through it. And like, I feel like it's kind of this like upward spiral of ascension. We're like, okay, we're doing really good. Like we're getting a lot of shit done. And like, ooh, wow, that's another onion layer that I didn't know I had, or like, ooh, wow, that's a trauma response that I didn't know was still there. Like, I mean, you guys can build off of that all day long, probably.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think I mean, the tests don't stop. Like the things, the challenges, or like the are you sure questions, like from the universe in different forms, come all the time, daily. It's like, and each time we're like, yeah, like Jade's little roller coaster. She's like, I feel like we're on the we part of the roller coaster. And it's like, yeah, we were. And now we're on like the, oh, fuck part of the roller coaster where it's like, what's going to happen? What's at the top of this hill? Like what's around the next turn of this roller coaster? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just going to keep riding because I can't jump off, because if I jump off, I'll hurt myself. So here we go. And like that, I mean, yeah, it's like there's a part of us that knows things because you asked what's it like to know, or do you know too much? And I think like there's a part of us that knows things, but then there's also a part where it's like it's just a trusting, and it's like I know that this is right. I don't know what the next right step is, but I know that this is right. So I'm going to just keep trusting. And even when I'm getting these challenges or things get harder, I'm going to just keep going because I know that this is right.
I also think we're all like incredibly hyper aware, like probably to the detriment of all three of us in totality, if I speak for us. Like in other groups that I've been in and in other circles that I've been in, people will say something and then they don't realize how it hits or how like the words have like the words or kind of the cycle or whatever the case may be. They're just like super focused on them. And like, I feel like all three of us are super focused on each other and relationship and businesses and so many other different things that like, I think all three of us collectively will kind of do that at a detriment of ourselves.
Yeah, we're learning. I think you would probably agree with this, right, Eric, that since I've been part of this group and doing even just this podcast, like my need to like my growth, my self-growth and my questioning myself and like battling myself and working through things has increased exponentially, right?
Yeah. I mean, you question every, in a good way, question every step and decision and thought, good or bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this has been a really great direction for you so far. And you've learned how to speak your truth more and your words and not hold back. So I think it's been nothing but good, even when it's been at face value not so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're all kind of on that page.
Well, I think that as you delve deeper into subject matter that is very personal and intimate, you're sort of taking off layers. Everyone wears armor that throughout their daily lives. I mean, you have to. It's a cold world out there. And so you have this vulnerability that you are, sort of espousing to each other, and you're able to build trust from examining these various topics and things that are considered taboo, talking about energy or discussing spiritualism, or talking about how the stars align one day, but they may not align another day. It is very much a highly personalized and a very intimate subject matter to explore. And I think the question is, do you see any ceiling to that, or is it just anything goes?
No feeling.
Yeah, I feel like with what we're doing, especially kind of bringing in the tech company and bringing in Aligned, like it goes so beautifully in tandem with like growing kind of personal development, spiritual development, etc. And then bringing it back to like bringing that onto social and bringing it onto business. Like we've been conditioned and taught to not do that. We've been conditioned and taught to like be quiet and work within an algorithm and use this profile and use this, like we're basically, it's funny because we're building two different things that seemingly don't go together, but in like tandem are going up kind of the same trajectory, if that makes sense. I don't know if like we will have a multi-billion-dollar business and we're going to be talking about Jade's favorite sex position. Like that might be the ceiling, that might be the cap. Like that's what comes to mind from my perspective.
See, that's ignorance is bliss. Like, like
Anthony's like, I really didn't want to know.
Like, I'm fine. I
I don't want to know.
No good. Thank you.
He's like, and that's why I don't listen.
Yeah, just
Exactly. What episode is that?
Anthony, what's for you won't pass by you. That's all I have to say.
Wow, let me write that down.
That's deep, Jade.
Yeah.
That was the longest answer to like a non-answered question. So
Yeah, sorry, did we answer that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess really what I was looking for is that when you have that gut feeling, like to us, obviously we can't see that. And even on phone calls that I have been privy to, like when you guys are on speaker and Cass is on a trip somewhere and it's like, I'm getting a download, I'm tapping in, I'm getting this message. I'm like, that must be annoying.
it is really fucking annoying.
To me, it's like when like for you, like you live your work, right? For me, I have somewhat of a traditional job. And so the appeal for me is that when I come home, I don't have to think about it. But your work is in your mind all the time.
That is so not true.
You don't think so?
Why is your work phone on? And why are you thinking about your stories Monday through Friday? And why is it that you want me to have this baby on a Friday so that you can extend your 5 days
Because
off?
America has a lot of work to do when it comes to family leave, and that's a conversation for another time. But in this particular moment, I do, because it really, I mean, you really are living your belief out loud, and it truly is, your belief is your work, right? And so I guess that is more what I was curious about, because it's like, in a moment's notice, you're like, I'm getting a download, I'm tapping into something, I don't know what it is, I'm going to circle back, and it's like, it is 11 p.m. Like, you need to go to bed. Like, have some tea. Like, I don't know.
Spirit knows no bounds.
Who
That
has
shit
the
happens
time?
at 3
Who has
a.m.
the time?
I think you really messaged me at 2:47 last night.
Yeah.
I was passed the fuck out, so I didn't see it. But no, I mean, I think a lot of, and I think this is actually even true for entrepreneurs versus standard work. Because I mean, Eric, even though you have a kind of standard-ish job, like you're still you're conceptualizing and dreaming up tattoos throughout like the time. You're not sitting there being like, okay, 15 minutes before I'm going to sketch out a hawk. Like,
Yeah, no, it's 24/7 thinking about it when I'm not actually doing it,
Mm-hmm. And managing
Yes.
your clients. I mean, yeah, you're definitely.
Yeah, it's a 24/7 thing for sure.
As is Anthony's in a way, but I think what you're saying, and I agree, Anthony, is that there's a compartmentalization of this is my work, this is my spiritual journey, this is my, my mental journey, and we are definitely meshing all of those. Yeah, we are combining. There's not as many boundaries, and that creates a lot of growth and opportunity, and it also creates a lot of challenges.
Because I think a lot of people don't necessarily have the opportunity to follow their calling full time and also rely on that to pay your bills. And I think that's the difference, right? I say calling, but it could be you could use whatever word you want. And that I think is what's so interesting to me, though, is that part can't shut off because you really you're on 24/7. So kudos to you. Could not be me.
For now.
Cass is convinced that you're working.
I know.
So.
Who knows?
Happen.
Maybe in 18 more card pulls. We'll see.
Jay can go pull 18 cards like that. So
I would say challenge accepted.
Not if I'm not willing. I have to be an active participant.
You do. You have to give permission.
Even in Florida, it was like Cass intercepted, I should say. And it was just
She
like,
did.
Too much of your energy, Jade.
Yeah, she
I
did.
have to do it.
I remember that vividly. She's like, no.
Oh, I don't remember what you guys are talking about at all.
You don't?
No,
Yeah,
she was pulling cards for Anthony, and the card pulls were too much Jade and not enough Anthony.
Yeah.
You were like, your energy is like yeah. You remember that now?
I was like, give me your deck.
No, but I, just to build off that a little bit, Anthony, I do think that if you're living your life truly in alignment with your vocation and what you're called to do, I'm not quite certain there's a way to completely detach yourself from that. Even something as simply as going out on a date and we leave the kids behind. And we might say, okay, well, let's, the sitter has the kids. We'll not talk about the kids during this date. It's almost inevitable that we're going to think about our children because they're that interwoven into our lives. And if you're living your vocation, your chosen purpose on this earth, and you're living your life to the greatest degree of fulfillment, it may be unavoidable to just go through that purpose-driven life in such a manner that you disregard that vocation for periods throughout the day.
That's interesting to me too, because you almost come from like an Anthony, like you worked for government. You worked like very like I clock in, I clock out. I don't think about what I'm doing at home. And now you're kind of on the other side of the pendulum. So it's a very interesting kind of like purview of spectrum of like where you're at versus like where Anthony's at versus where Eric's at. It's kind of cool.
Oh, certainly so.
There's a different viewpoint in there too, right? Of between living in your purpose and your purpose also funding your lifestyle, right? And like, is there, because not everyone's purpose funds their lifestyle. There are a lot of people that have, 3 or 4 different things. They feel purpose driven to run a nonprofit, but maybe said nonprofit doesn't actually pay the bills, and so they have other jobs so that they can feel fulfilled in this work, but also pay their bills in another way. So it is interesting.
Yeah, that we've gotten a lot deeper than what I thought we were going to get.
Seriously, I did not see it going this
I
direction.
mean, we started out sexual innuendos and ended up at purpose. Yeah, we've come full circle.
Welcome to another episode of Girlfriends Without Benefits.
Correct. There's
Well,
sacred conversations from what was it, spirituality to sexuality.
Exactly. We went there.
yeah, well, we'll have to have these boys on again so we can talk about like, why they're our people and maybe, or how we met or some fun things like that. That might be fun at another
I'm
point.
sure we're gonna get some questions. Why Tom's nickname is Eeyore.
Nonchalant Eeyore. It's a whole story.
It's a whole story. That could be a whole podcast.
But yeah, I think that's it for this episode.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks, you
Yeah,
guys, for
thank
coming
you.
on.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
It was interesting.